Please be seated. Welcome, everyone. Township of Old Bridge Zoning Board of Adjustment, regular meeting, April 8, 2024. Adequate notice of this meeting of the Old Bridge Township Zoning Board of Adjustment has been provided in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act at least 48 hours prior to the commencement of this meeting by prominently posting in the municipal complex an announcement giving the time, the date, the location, and the agenda of this meeting. Also by mailing such announcement to the Home News and Tribune, filing a copy of such announcement with the municipal clerk, and posting the agenda on the municipal website. Ms. Porcelli, could we have a roll call, please?
Certainly. Ms. Andrews?
Here.
Ms. Chevalier?
Here.
Mr. Scogno?
Here.
Mr. Stoner?
Here.
Mr. Singh? Chairman Sullivan?
Here. For some housekeeping issues, the meeting is being televised live on OBTV Channel 15 here in the township. And simultaneously, it also goes out over YouTube Live. If you want to refer back to the meeting, you can find that on the internet. I would ask all people here in the courtroom this evening, please silence their phones so we don't interrupt any of the testimony. Appreciate that. On the agenda tonight, there was 4 scheduled. I want to alert, if you're here for any of the 2 that I'm going to read, who are not going to be heard tonight, and for those maybe watching at home. Item number 60-2023Z, Pension Road LLC. That's Pension Road and 351 Pension Road. That's for self-storage. The public hearing for this application has been adjourned July 18th. I see no further notice. Wouldn't it be with further notice, Mr. Clancy?
Never
heard it.
they're going to notice again,
Yeah.
and as long as the board's okay with carrying it without further notice, that's fine.
I would prefer that they notice. Okay, yeah, they haven't been in, yes. Okay, that's going to be with further notice. If anybody is affected by that in that area, you will get re-notified. And the other matter that's not going to be heard this evening is 46-2022Z, that's 1799 Realty LLC. The location of that is, physical location is 1799 Highway 9 in Old Bridge. That's for a 40-room motel. That matter will not be heard this evening. The public hearing for that application has been adjourned to June 6th without further notice. I think the same should apply there, and that's going to be with further notice.
Okay.
Because they have not appeared yet, so I believe that they should further notice those affected by that. All right, so that leaves us with 2 this evening. I'm going to take it out of order that if you happen to have an agenda, and I'm going to take the last one first.
We want to do the resolutions first?
That's right, we should move.
There's only 3.
We could do those later. We'll do the resolutions, and then we'll get right to the applications. 78-2023Z, Vita DeLisi, it was a C variance. Mr. Clancy?
Yes, this was for 8 Cliffwood Way over in Lawrence Harbor. We heard this application back on March 21st at our last meeting. This was C variance relief for minimum side setback, minimum combined setback, minimum accessory side setback, minimum accessory rear setback, and minimum landscape area ratio. The board did act on this matter and approve it at the last meeting. The usual terms and conditions for approval. It's on for final approval memorialization tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Clancy. Board members, you've heard the resolution. Someone move it for adoption, please.
Chevalier moves it.
Is there a second?
Andrews second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Andrews?
Yes.
Ms. Chevalier?
Yes.
Mr. Scogno?
Yes.
Mr. Stoner?
Yes.
Mr. Singh? Chairman Sullivan?
Yes. 81-2023Z, Marina Pellegrino, C variance and design waiver. Mr. Clancy.
Okay, this is another one from last meeting. This was 218 Cindy Street in Old Bridge. This was installation of a jacuzzi, a bar, and a shed to legalize those that were, it was a COVID project that was put in. The board did hear the application, did approve it with the usual conditions, but adding that the shed structure will not be used as living space, no electricity to be installed in the shed, and that the applicant agreed to resolve any drainage issues which may arise as a result of the improvements. That was approved, and it is on for memorialization tonight.
Board members, you've heard the resolution. Someone want to move it, please, for adoption?
Andrews move it.
Is there a second?
Second Stoner?
Okay, moved in second. Roll call, please.
Ms. Andrews?
Yes.
Ms. Chevalier?
Yes.
Mr. Izzo? I'm sorry, Mr. Scogno?
Yes.
Mr. Stoner?
Yes.
Mr. Singh? Chairman Sullivan?
Yes. Finally, 80-2023Z, Michael Scarpa, C variance. Mr. Clancy.
Yes, and this was the last one that was approved from last meeting on March 21st. This is for 177 Park Avenue in Old Bridge. This is for legalization of a shed and a gazebo structure that was constructed during the pandemic. There was some side setback relief and minimum rear accessory setback. The gazebo had accessory side setback. This was approved with the usual conditions and the additional condition that the applicant should apply or shall apply for permits through the construction office for deck improvements and ensure that the structure is in compliance with zoning requirements. This was approved and it is on for memorialization tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Clancy. Board members, once again, someone move this for...
Move it, Scogno.
Is there a second?
Second Stoner?
Roll call, please.
Ms. Andrews?
Yes.
Ms. Chevalier?
Yes.
Mr. Scogno?
Yes.
Mr. Stoner?
Yes.
Mr. Singh?
Yes.
Chairman Sullivan?
Yes. Now we will move to our applications. And the first one up is going to be 73-2023Z, Sean DeLuca. This is a low, medium density R20 zone. It's block 24000, lot 39.17. The physical location is 10 Red Shore Boulevard. This requires a D variance for a sunroom on the second-story deck. Applicant proposes a 16-foot 1 by 18-foot 1 sunroom to enclose an existing second-story deck, bringing the total floor area ratio to 17.88, where a maximum of 17% would be, is permitted. Sir?
There should be a button on it that turns, you have to hold down, it'll turn it green, and then you can let it go. There you go.
You can be seated, sir. And I just want to give you some information. Number one, this is a D variance. Now, you're going to need the microphone in front of you. They're directional. Thanks. A D variance, by rules of the board, requires a stenographer, and the reason is because you'll have no record of what happened if in fact, you're not approved and you needed to go further with this. There is the availability of YouTube. And you could, I guess, I know you could have a transcript made from that viewing. It's up to you whether you want to proceed. The board can waive it if you so desire, but that's on you.
Before I even get to that, the board attorney was kind enough to advise that there's not I don't want to say a full board, a complete board here tonight.
We'll go to that next.
Okay.
Okay. I just want to know whether you want to waive the right, because we want to put it on the record what you're going to say.
We could waive that, right? Yes.
Okay. The second thing I'm going to tell you is that in a D variance, it requires a majority of the votes. So it's 5 of 7. Boards are comprised of 9 with 7 and 2 alternates. So tonight we're seating, what, 6? You would have to have 5.
6 tonight?
Yeah, we have Mr. Singh
Excellent,
joining us.
okay.
So you would have to have 5 votes, not a plurality, but a majority. So I just want to advise you of that. When we get to the point where I'm going to ask you after your testimony, I'll give you the right to ask for a vote or not ask for a vote. You could always continue this matter on to allow the board, you could come back. There would be no more testimony, but there might be more people to make a decision. That'll be up to you at the end, and I'll give you that right.
Okay.
Okay? Now, before you testify, I'm going to ask the board attorney to swear you in.
Okay.
All right, can you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear any testimony you provide before the board will be the truth and the whole truth?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you can put your hand down. Just state your name for the record.
Sean Del Duca, DEL, capital D-U-C-A.
Is anyone else going to be testifying with you? Do you have any witnesses?
The builder.
Okay.
I don't
Bring them up.
Yeah, we can have him come up.
Have them come take a seat, and we'll do this all at once. Sir, same thing's going to happen. The board attorney's going to swear you in if you're going to testify before the board, okay?
Yes.
Okay, can you kindly raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear any testimony you provide before the board will be the truth and the whole truth?
I do.
Okay, you can have a seat. Can you just put your name on the record for us, please?
Sure. My name is Dominic Ronco, last name spelled W-R-O-N-K-O, and I'm the project manager for the proposed sunroom builder.
Okay.
While you're not represented by an attorney, obviously you have someone who's going to testify. So briefly, what I'll tell you, what needs to happen if you've never been before board before, the board judges things on what they're informed of. So we're going to ask you to tell us the who, what, why, and wheres. And then we may have some questions of you, you may have some questions of us. In this case, I know that your professional, the project manager is probably going to do some testimony as well. Again, the professionals may have some questions. We'll find out. When all that's settled, we have to open a public portion.
Okay.
I'll invite the public if they want to weigh in on this matter, positive, negative. There may be some, there may be none. When we close that, that's when I'm going to come back to you and ask you if you want to vote.
Understood.
All right? So you can take your time, do it in your own manner. If you have any kind of proofs or something, or pictures you're going to give us or show us, other than that, you can go at your own speed. You can have Mr. Ronco join in whenever you want, okay? But only one testify at a time, obviously, because you want the record clear, and it's being recorded, obviously, for you.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Would he give the photos that we want to submit for evidence to the zoning board secretary, or bring them to you guys, or?
And the board attorney can mark them.
Yeah, you can bring them up to me.
You have a copy for yourself so you can explain?
Yes.
Yeah, that's okay. And as you go through each one, the board attorney is going to probably say A1, A2, but we'll see how that moves forward.
Okay.
You're on.
You're asking me why I want what I'm looking for?
Yes, tell us what you want to do. You live here in the community, where do you live?
Okay.
What's surrounding your house, et cetera? You know, give us a description, we'll walk through.
Understood. Thank you very much, and thank you everyone for your time. Essentially, we would like to build a sunroom on our deck. We've been in the house probably about 7 or 8 years or so, maybe a little longer. And right now we have a deck. The house came with a deck. We had a bigger deck built. Got all the permits, did everything we're supposed to. And now we have that bigger deck, which was great. We liked it. We're behind our house. We have easements, wetlands, property, and it's very nice back there. And we got the deck, had breakfast outside with the kids. It was great. Sometimes the bugs would want to have breakfast with us and whatnot, and we didn't utilize the space as much as we wanted to. And then now we finally have the chance to have the sunroom, which my wife wants. I can go into detail all the reasons she would really want it if you really want to hear it. But basically, she always kind of wanted one, and her sister got one, and she realized it is what she wants. It's a family room. It's a family room that there's no TV in it. There's no nothing. It's just a room that's quiet. And I kind of wish she was here. It's her, because I don't really know. I'm not gonna. This is on the record. I don't want to say anything bad about it. She really wants something to the effect of, sitting out there, listening to the rain, with the kids there, sitting on the couch with blankets and not, not being bothered by the outside world and just looking out and seeing everything and not having the bugs or anything bother her, and being with the kids and just have that quiet event. That's what she's looking for. Quite honestly, if I had known better, we would have done this all at once. When we had the deck built, we had the deck built because that's what we could afford. We do things as we can afford them. If we could have done everything at once, we would have done everything at once. And I don't know, maybe Mr. Ronco could explain a little better, but I understand the issue is the sunroom would be too big for the deck. But that's all my own ignorance is, well, the deck is there, just put some walls and a roof up, what's the big deal? Again, I don't know what I'm doing, that's why I have other people do stuff. And now I know that it is an issue. But essentially, if we had known, we would have had a deck built to fit this all. So, I don't know, I feel at this point I'm just kind of rambling. It's really just, it's something that we would really want, we really hope to have. My wife is, it would be a very nice family room, and that's what she wants. And quite honestly, I don't want to go back and tell her we're not getting it. But that's what it is. It's
All right.
free from the mosquitoes, free from the noise.
Let me help you out a little bit here.
Thank you.
What you said I can see from the pictures, and I could see from Google Earth that you're surrounded by woods. All of the homes there look like they back up to woods.
Yes, essentially, my, where
can see
where
the
my
picture.
house is, it cuts across my yard.
My question is,
Oh, sorry.
is that wetlands that are preserved that can never be built on?
That's correct.
I
Yeah, the survey reflects that as well.
All right, so no one's going to build back there.
can't
Correct.
do a thing back there. It's staying there.
So the only effect this may have on someone if it was a neighbor on the left or the right, I guess, right?
Correct.
You do know that I told you this is on YouTube Live, and your wife is probably watching, so don't make things up, because she'll call in. You know I'm joking.
Mr.
She's
Chairman,
too busy.
well, she's too busy saving lives, but at the
So
other time,
essentially, you have a deck there, but
Yes.
after you bought the home, you made a bigger deck.
correct,
Okay, so this bigger deck is what you want to enclose?
correct, the deck that's there.
Okay. And is it going to go beyond, we'll hear from, I guess, the project manager. It's probably going to be just enclosed with glass there?
Yeah, walls and a roof, that's how I,
And you're not looking to make it into a living space?
No.
Living in the sense of like another bedroom?
No.
It won't be conditioned.
no, that's why, quite honestly, I figured it's walls and a roof, you know. like-
All right. Why don't you let your project manager tell us what's going on?
So we're under contract to construct a 16-foot, 1-inch by 18-foot, 1-inch, three-season sunroom, not to be conditioned, on the existing deck that's there. As Mr. Del Duca had expressed, that deck was built with permits supplied by Old Bridge Township, and all inspections were completed, and I'm assuming that you got a certificate of approval on that as well.
Whatever you're supposed to.
While I understand that the floor area ratio requirements are very stringent in this community, we are going over very minimally. And as you had stated before, Chairman, there's not to be anything built behind the Del Duca's property because it's stipulated to be not only a conservation area, but wetlands.
It's not affecting any setbacks either, right?
No, it's not. No setbacks have been affected. It's only the floor area ratio that's of concern before the board.
Mrs. Swan, do you have any comments? This is like 200 square foot, right? Over on the floor area ratio?
290 square feet. And I just have one question, because since the request for the variance is very minimal, had you considered shrinking the size slightly so that you could totally eliminate the D4?
Could I answer that for him a little
Sure,
bit?
sure.
And you can expand. When you do that, so envision that you have, I don't know, let's say 40 square feet of that deck that's not enclosed. It really becomes kind of a difficult thing for those children that are young who are going to feel safe being able to climb out onto that exposed area, and really could be a safety detriment. I think that's what the concern is.
And the access to this sunroom would be from the,
The plans reflect an existing deck, and the photos that we've submitted to the board also reflect that door.
There's a door.
oh, okay.
From where? Where does that run off?
From where,
house,
the
on
second?
Inside the kitchen area.
From your kitchen area?
Correct.
That's it.
Let me see if any of the board members have questions at this point. I'll go down to Mr. Singh. Anything? Any questions? No. Mr. Stoner?
This sunroom, you're gonna have AC and heating?
As I had stipulated before, it's not to be conditioned, so no.
No, it's,
It's a three-season room, you said?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Scogno?
I'm concerned about the weight. I'm concerned about the weight. It's true that you apply for a permit for the deck, and you got approval. They didn't know at that time you were going to add.
We supplied plans in our application which led to this variance from a licensed engineer that designs these sunrooms, and it meets the requirements of the 2021 International Residential Code, New Jersey edition.
What is the weight going to be?
Specifically,
Well, can this handle it, the deck? You only have
that's-
1, 2, 3, and then I guess it's tied into the back of the house. Structurally, I don't know if that could support it.
are you looking at the sealed
I'm
plans?
looking at this.
Oh, okay. Did the board get supplied with sealed plans or copies of such?
I do not have one.
No, I'd be happy to supply that, showing that.
Well, can we go
what-
by, can we look at this?
You sure can.
Yeah, so you only have 3 columns supporting this deck,
Correct,
and then you tie it into the back,
correct.
right?
Yes.
So what's the weight going to be on top of this deck?
I don't know the specific weight, but I can tell you that a licensed professional had signed off on the proposed weight to go on this deck, live and dead loads.
And then we'll have a chance to look at that with the permit.
Correct, yeah, we wouldn't be able to be supplied with a permit unless we supplied signed, sealed plans by a licensed professional in the state of New Jersey.
Okay. And most of it's glass, right?
Yeah, it's a majority glass, it's a sunroom. Correct.
Can we,
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No problem.
Can we, I know you handed out some photos. I'd like to get them marked, so, because you were nice enough to provide them to the board. So, this one here, can you take a look at that?
Okay.
Yep. I'm going to call this one A1, all right? What, can you just describe this for the board so they know kind of like what they're looking at here?
All right, so the circled house is my house, and then you're looking at the backyard, and basically all the trees and wildlife and animals, whatever that hang out back there.
Okay, so this is basically like an overview of the area, right?
Correct, sir.
All right, and then let's look at your other photos real quick. We'll get them marked. I guess we'll start with this one.
Okay.
We'll call this one A2. Can you describe for the board what's being shown on here?
Sure, that essentially shows the deck that's there, as well as the door that would lead out to the sunroom. Behind that door is the kitchen.
Will that be the access point onto the,
Yes, sir.
into the proposed room?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then, that's A2. And then this one right here, I'm going to mark this one as A3. Can you describe that for the board?
That's looking from the ground up at the deck that already exists. That's where what would be enclosed.
Okay. And the proposed development's going to go right on top of that, kind of like where that fence structure is now, or that get, what you call those things?
I call it the fence.
Rails. Like a
Rail.
rail.
Yeah.
That's gonna come down, it's gonna be glass, and that's kind of like.
Whatever the material is, yes.
Okay. And then, if this one here, this will be, I guess, A4. Can you describe what we're seeing here?
Again, that's just from the ground up, looking at the existing deck and where the requested room would go.
Okay, it looks like there's like a stairway going up there now.
Correct, sir.
Is that gonna remain?
We're actually replacing that because by code, when you step out of an enclosure, you have to have a landing to walk out onto, service that door. That door has to be the width of the door that it services, as well as 3 feet in the direction of travel. So that wouldn't meet code, and we would get told by Old Bridge Township, come back to us once you propose a landing and stairs. So we're redoing that to meet the code.
Okay. And that, all that'll be, I guess, included in your plans if you get approval
Correct,
from this board.
yes.
Okay.
There will be another entrance, though, or an exit, I should say.
There'll be an exit from the proposed room onto the first floor, correct.
The stairs you said are going to remain, right? But you're going to put a platform in, so you will be able to
It'll be the same design as the stairs now, just with a 3-by-3 landing to meet code.
So someone can walk in from outside, and they could also walk outside, correct?
Correct.
So there'll be another door.
That's correct. Yep, there's 2 doors proposed.
Ms. Chevalier, did you have any questions? Ms. Andrews?
No, you took care of it.
Okay.
I was concerned that there was no exit out of it to the outside, not through a kitchen, God forbid. Any kind of, oh, I'm sorry.
Microphone?
No, I
One
was-
more, one more.
My main concern was that there should be something to get outside from
Correct.
that room, not
Yep.
have to work to go through the kitchen.
No,
in
no, no.
case of anything.
No,
So
you can enter the backyard from the enclosure.
what is going to be, is there going to be storage underneath that deck? That deck, because as I see it now, it's all empty. Is
We're-
it going to be closed in?
That's for you to answer, but we're not
I
under
don't,
contract.
you want to know my honest opinion? That's, I can't afford anything else. That's enough. I'm not,
I want to meet your wife.
no, no, honestly, that's, you really want to know what it is? It's going to be for the kids to be under and do whatever sport or fantasy thing they want. That's enough. No, the sunroom is it, hopefully.
And this is, it's going to be no heat and no air conditioning in there at all?
Correct, it's not to be conditioned.
So it's not really year-round living?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, they may throw a little oscillating heater in there to get another month during fall, but that's completely up to them, but
My wife
as
uses
per-
a heater in July, so I don't know.
there you go.
Anything else you want to tell us?
I'm just reading through my notes.
You think this will have any negative effect on the neighborhood
That's
or
what I
the
was-
zone plan?
I can tell you on the record, because I'm sworn in, as we were discussing this matter, he received a text from one of his neighbors that said, "Good luck, let me know if there's anything I need to do. You've got our backing," basically.
Yeah, no, all the neighbors say, good luck, hope it works out, and nobody seems to.
Do you know if any of the other neighbors have done similar projects like this?
I know, well, some people have done expanded decks, some people have done,
You mentioned that
one person has like, they put this nice, they have a much bigger deck than me, and they have, the roof and whatever else, it's not enclosed though.
So this would fit in contemporarily with the rest of the neighbors?
No, I would think so.
I would agree in color and design.
Okay. And you don't think this has any negative effect on the zone plan, do you?
I don't, and I think what really gives, I guess, a little bit of support to what what we're proposing is that there are wetlands back there, and there's never going to be any more construction to occur.
Right. How many of these have you involved yourself in, sir?
I've appeared before over 100 variance boards, zoning boards of adjustment.
In this particular project, have you ever done similar ones?
Yes, I have.
Okay. And of course, we do have a signed plan, right?
Yes,
A sealed plan, I should say.
signed, sealed plans.
Let me see one more time if the board wants anything, or the professionals, and then I'm going to ask, then I'm going to go to the public, okay? I'm going to go one more time down to, any questions? On my left? None? On my right? Vina, you good? Mr. Clancy?
I would just add on, if you were to make this, I know we talked about if we made it smaller to conform to the variance, it would cause a safety issue because you kind of have that additional area around it. And if you were truly going to make it conforming and actually bring the deck in, you'd almost have to build a new deck there, more or
In
less,
essence.
right? Yeah. All right, so.
I would agree with that statement.
Are you planning on putting any electricity out there just for lights or anything like
By
that?
code, you have to have a certain amount of receptacles per lineal foot. Basically, the way the code is written is that you'll be able to take a standing lighting fixture that has a 6-foot cord and be able to reach a receptacle with that, which, it's 12 feet, but really they want 10, and you can't cross a door with that extension cord, so we have one on each side of that exit door.
Okay.
Yeah, you probably already have one out there, right?
I think they have one outside the immediate door, but what I'm saying is that, like, where that exit door is leading to the first floor, we have one on each side.
And any plumbing out there?
No,
Okay.
no. Great question, never.
I think so.
Anything else you want to tell me at this point?
No.
Let me go to the public portion. This is 73-2023. This is, location is 10 Red Shore Boulevard. This is for an enclosure of a sunroom on an existing porch. Anybody here tonight in the room would like to be heard on this matter, please raise your hand or stand. Last chance. I'll close the public portion. Board members, any final comments? This seems pretty simple. We've handled these applications before that are very similar. I can see in the back that you're not going to disturb anybody because there's never going to be a build back there. And it looks like it would be contemporary with the neighborhood. I don't think it's a disruption of the zone plan whatsoever, and I believe you've met the burden of proof. So if you'd like me to take a vote, I will warn you again that you'll need 5 of the 6 members seated. If you choose not to, I'll allow you to continue this at another time when other members will be seated. You will still need 5 votes. So I don't know that anything changes other than the odds. So that's totally up to you, sir, if you'd like me to take a vote. I don't see that the board has found any kind of problem with this. Again, we've handled these many, many times, and all the board members who are sitting here have sat on similar applications. So that would be totally up to you whether you want me to take a vote or not. This is only for D variance, right? There's no bulk?
It's just the
Okay.
floor area, floor area variance, D4.
Yep.
And .17 is what's permitted there, and he's at .178, so it's a very minimal.
Uh,
Going to go for the vote, sir, right?
yes, sir.
You can go home and make your wife happy that way, right?
That's
Or,
always the plan.
or,
No, don't.
let's
baby,
not
or-
go anywhere. All right, this is for a D4 variance for the floor area ratio, as Mr. Clancy said. Maximum approved is 17.00, you're at 17.88, so it's about 200 square foot. Board members, is someone in favor of moving with D4 approval for this sunroom?
Chevalier will move it.
Is there a second?
Andrews, second.
Roll call, please, as to D4.
Ms. Andrews?
Yes.
Ms. Chevalier?
Yes.
Mr. Scogno?
Yes.
Mr. Stoner?
My answer is yes.
Yes?
Mr. Singh,
Oh,
well, no,
you said
we-
yes? Okay.
Yes, I said yes. I'm sorry.
Mr. Singh?
Yeah.
Chairman Sullivan?
Yes. Best of luck. All right, there'll be a approval written on this for the next meeting, I would assume. Please contact anyone in the building department that you need to. I'm sure you'll take advice from your project manager. Thank you for your presentation this evening, and you as well, sir. Reinvesting in your home makes it better for you, makes it better for the community, so I'm happy that you're doing this for your family.
You made it better for me and my wife, so thank you very much. Thank you very
All right,
much for your
sir.
time.
Have a great night.
All right, thank you very much for your
So
time.
much.
Thank you. Guys, need any time for setup for the other one? No? I'll call it in. 44-2023Z, MCB Landscaping. Zone is low, medium density residential, R20. Block 11257, Lot 4, physical location 4244 County Highway 516. This is requiring D variance for home-based landscaping business. Applicant proposes to operate a landscaping business in the rear of the subject property. The applicant owns said property and resides in a single-family home on the property. Michael Collins, representing? Mr. Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and board members, good evening. I am Michael L. Collins. My law firm is King Mention Collins, and I represent, in this matter, MCB Landscaping Incorporated, which is the business entity of my client, Mark Boyko, who is seated to my right. Mr. Boyko is the owner of a residential property just down the road from us here at 4244 County Route 516, which is identified on the tax maps as Block 11257, Lot 4. If I could just give the board a little introduction into this application, Mr. Chairman. My client purchased this property during COVID in 2020, moving into Old Bridge. I would submit that while many people worked from home on their computers like myself, Mr. Boyko owns a small landscaping and snow plowing business, and upon moving into the property, stored some of his construction equipment to the rear of it. During the course of his home ownership, the town reached out to him. He was cited and informed about the zoning issues presented by the storage of this construction equipment and maintenance of a home-based landscaping use. And as a result, immediately thereafter, he made application to this board after he was able to hire the appropriate professionals. He's also since abandoned this use, so the property does not have any equipment on it at this time, and he is well aware of that he's submitting to this board's jurisdiction and its discretion on its adjudication of this matter. Tonight, we're here on a bifurcated deep variance basis. The reason we did that was to come to this board first to determine if it would deem the proposed use appropriate, which we believe we'll be able to establish the deep proofs after hearing from both Mr. Boyko and his planner this evening. And then also, by proceeding on a bifurcated basis, if the use were approved by this board, it would allow us to come back with a site plan application, and we could fine-tune that, address any compliance issues such as DEP, and also take into account any comments from the board tonight. The property is a bit unusual. It does front on County Route 516. It's over 2 acres large, actually 2.33 acres, and it's very long and narrow. And on the side to the west, it actually adjoins municipally owned property, which has high-tension power lines, and then the museum at the other end of that property. So we will submit that, given the nature of it, it is suitable for D1 relief. And finally, I will note for the record that we have worked with certain neighbors that have reached out to our client in order to answer questions and resolve some issues, and we've had very effective conversations, which will bear out tonight, as Mr. Boyko wants to be a good neighbor and work with those around him who are willing to do so. So if there, with no further ado, I'd ask if we could swear in my client, Mark Boyko, for testimony.
Can you just raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear any testimony you provide before the board will be the truth and the whole truth?
I do.
Okay, you can have a seat and just state your name for the record, please.
Mark C. Boyko,
Thank you.
Spell your last name, sir.
B-O-Y-K-O.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chairman. Mark, could you please share with the board when you moved to Old Bridge, where you moved from, and the nature of moving to town?
We moved to Old Bridge in April of 2020, former resident of Saraville.
Okay, so you've been local to the area? Okay. I hinted at it earlier in my opening, but could you please describe the property that you reside at?
The property is a long, narrow lot located on Highway 516. To the corner of one property is a local firehouse that I am a member of and also an officer there. And then to the right of the property is a municipality-owned museum building.
Okay, and it's along the County Route 516?
Yeah, it's along County Route 516.
Okay. Mark, when you moved to the property, can you describe the condition that you found the property in and also the neighboring properties?
When we moved to the property, you know, the property had a little bit of neglect, and we did some landscaping improvements, cleaned up the property. We noticed a lot of neighboring properties had, you know, equipment and unregistered vehicles and items stored on the properties, so we didn't think by moving some landscape equipment it would be an issue.
Okay, so you weren't aware that by putting the equipment there, you would be committing any violations?
No.
Okay.
Based on the area and what we saw.
Okay. Now, can you describe for the board, as I mentioned earlier, you've already abandoned the use, is that correct?
Yeah, we abandoned the use and took all stuff with the landscape business off the property.
Okay, so we're obviously here talking about the future. Could you explain for the board what equipment you're looking to store at, in the rear of your home in support of your landscaping business?
We're looking to store landscape trucks and trailers in the rear of the property. And in doing that, we're looking to construct a pole barn to store all this equipment inside the pole barn.
And so by constructing it, would that conceal the equipment from public?
That would conceal all the equipment inside the building, yes.
Okay. And I would mention that we have submitted a site plan for the board, which is evidentiary here, but also we would fine tune that if we came back for site plan approval at a later point. Are there any other improvements that are contained within the site plan that you intend to create if the board gives you relief, Mark?
We're also looking to install a fence along the property lines and a screening of staggered evergreen trees to help screen the property and beautify the location and also the neighboring properties.
Okay. Now, in terms of the operation of the landscaping use. Could you explain for the board if the equipment were stored on site, when the equipment would leave the property, when it would return?
2 to 3 employees would arrive to the site in the morning. They would get in a company vehicle. 2 to 3 trucks would leave. This would happen between 8 and 8:30 a.m. in the morning. They would return between 5 and 7 at night, the trucks back to the property. One additional truck may come back during the day around lunchtime, but that would be it.
And would that be yourself?
That'd probably be myself for lunch.
Okay. Can you describe the size of the trucks?
All the trucks are single axle, non-air brake trucks.
So they're not big rigs or anything of that
no.
nature? Okay. And the storage, again, is intended to be within the pole barn that would be constructed?
Within the pole barn and a few storage bins on the rear of the property.
Okay. And would you have any equipment or any materials outside of either the pole barn or the storage bins?
No, everything would be encompassed inside the pole barn.
Okay. So the improvements fully address the proposed use? Okay. Besides the equipment storage and the commutation, are you proposing any other commercial aspects as part of this application?
There'd be no signage, there'd be no customers on the property. All of our work is done off-site.
Okay. All right. Unless you have any questions, Mr. Chairman and board members, I don't have any further direct for Mr. Boyko.
We'll go to the planner. Mr. Dargy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few quick questions regarding the testimony about the number of trucks and number of employees. How many trucks? Could you just give us we like specificity, so specifically the amount of trucks and other equipment that you have?
So we own 4 trucks.
Okay.
And two trailers. And employees, we have 2 to 3 depending on the season.
So the employees, typically, the landscape crews that I'm used to seeing, you have a truck and there's usually a few employees in that truck. So if you have 4 trucks, I would imagine that should be like 12 to 15 employees, maybe?
So different trucks are used for different things.
Okay,
So if on a mowing day, we may go out in a mowing truck and, on a landscape day. So that's why we have 4 vehicles, because we also do snow removal.
Okay.
So some of those vehicles are used for that as well.
okay.
Hear that last word?
Yeah, just make sure you might want to pull that microphone a little bit closer. Very direct.
Yeah.
There you go.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Some of those trucks are also used for snow removal.
Snow
So
removal,
it's not
thank
every day that we're using every truck.
Okay, so how many employees you said 2 to 3 employees, but then you said 2 to 3 trucks leave during the day, and then
Yeah.
one comes back. So that's the reason I'm wondering how many employees
Yeah.
there actually would be.
We have one employee that they come together in the same car. So
Okay, so how many employees actually you had 2 to 3 trucks leaving.
Yeah.
How many people actually are in each truck?
about 2,
So really it would be like 4 to 6 employees then, right?
closer to 4.
Okay, I'm not trying to get you in a gotcha. I'm just trying to get the actual numbers so that we can document it and everything. Because should the board act favorably, all this stuff is actually what gets documented and given to the zoning officer, and they'll be checking up on this stuff. That's why.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have anything else for the applicant.
Ms. Swan?
I don't have any questions for this particular witness.
When we talk about specificity, you're talking about trucks. Why don't you describe the trucks? Are they pickup trucks? Are they dump trucks?
2
Are they
pickups, 2 Mason/landscape dumps.
a single axle?
Single axle, non-air brake.
You have any payloaders or any front-end loaders on the property?
We do have a skid steer, yes.
One?
Yes.
And you said you're talking about bins on the property, right?
Yes.
And
To
you
the rear of
noted
the
3 bins?
3 bins, yep.
What would they contain?
Mulch, stone, and topsoil.
Are they actually in the building or are they
No, the bins would be outside,
in the rear, I think you said?
in the rear, yes.
Okay, thank you.
How do you acquire that material?
It would be, if we do a job and we have some left over, it would go into the bin for the next job. Or if we have a big job coming up, we would have a small delivery come to the site.
A delivery would come to the site, you wouldn't go out and get it.
Depending on the material. Mostly it's left over from a job.
Okay, well, this is the time of year we do mulching.
Yeah.
You would probably fill your bin with mulch
Correct.
at a certain price and a price point, and then you would use that. So you load your trucks with a skid steer
Yes,
and unload them, I would assume.
yes.
So it's 2 pickups, 1 mason dump,
2 mason dumps, 2
Two mason.
pickups.
2 mason dump, 2 of each,
Yep.
and no other equipment.
There's another truck that's commercial, but that's my personal vehicle.
Commercial in the sense of what?
It has plates, that, it's a pickup truck.
Oh, yeah.
But it's
Oh,
not
that's what I
lettered.
meant.
Yeah,
So that would be a total of 7?
no,
No. 2 pickups,
2 mason dumps.
2 mason, and 1 other pickup?
Yep,
Okay. And a skid steer.
correct.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just ask one clarifying question. The personal truck you referenced, would that typically be parked at your house, not in the back portion that's being proposed?
Correct, yep. And that's unlettered truck.
We're going to hear from somebody, I guess, as to the size of the pole barn, whether or not this equipment's going to fit in, and et cetera? You have other witnesses, I'm assuming?
Mr. Chairman, we do have our planner who could certainly speak to those dimensions and the suitability to D1. Given the nature of we did this on a bifurcated basis also because of, the cost associated with getting the engineer. The plans are in the record, which hopefully the board has in front of them, but it does have a 60 by 40 pole barn, which the engineer has put on sealed plans as being suitable.
Okay. So someone will speak to what can fit in there, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Let me see if any of the board members at this point have a question of the owner. Going to my left, Mr. Stoner?
Yes, I have a few questions. So what time do business start in the morning for you?
What, say that again?
What time does business start that your
The
operations?
employees would arrive to the property between 8 and 8:30 in the morning,
And what time do you guys finish for the day?
between 5 and 7.
And there's no activity in the evening on the properties?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Scogno?
Yes, what equipment are you putting on these trucks? Is it daily you load them and then unload them at night?
They would have weed whackers, blowers, maintenance equipment.
Lawn mowers?
Yeah, that would go on the trailer, yes. But they stay on the trailer overnight.
And the push mowers, they come off? Or they stay on?
They stay on for
Right,
probably half of the week, and then if we do a landscape job, we would leave that trailer at the site.
Yeah, and fueling would be done while it's on the
off-premise.
truck,
Yeah, fueling would be done off premise,
on the premise?
off premise.
Off-premise.
We would buy our fuel at a local store.
And that fuel will be in containers kept on site?
And then 1 5-gallon gas can per truck.
What about starting it up, the equipment? Making sure it's running fine? I mean, you get on a site and all of a sudden the thing is not working. Don't you normally start it up? Check
Usually,
it out in the morning?
usually we put everything away, at the end of the day, and when we get to site, that's when we start going through the equipment.
Yeah, and sometimes these machines go down while you're working and then you get back to home.
Yeah.
And now you gotta work on them.
That's
Start
if
'em
we,
up.
if we had a garage, that would be done inside.
That'll be done in the pole barn.
Yeah,
And that pole barn will be in the back.
correct.
And beyond your property in the back, aren't there homes back there?
There are. I don't have an exact measurement, but it's pretty far back and still a wooded buffer.
Yeah, so you're gonna have the mulch bins, the dirt, and rocks, whatever
Yep.
else. And then you're gonna have the
Topsoils.
pole barn in front of that?
Yes.
And so beyond that is the homes, right?
Beyond that is a very
A development.
Is a dense wooded area before the homes.
Yes, yes. And then to the right and to the left, you have homes.
We have a neighbor on the right side facing the house, and to the left is wooded area.
There's no home on the other side?
There is no home on the other side.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Chevalier?
Yeah, explain the bins.
The
Are
bi-
they just a back and 2 sides and left open?
Correct. They're concrete, made out of concrete bin blocks.
Okay, so when you're filling with mulch, When you fill them with mulch, are they smelly?
We use a clean mulch, you know, so, but not a lot of mulch stays on the site. Actually, right now, there's no mulch on the site, so.
And just go back to the 5-gallon gas cans.
Yeah, a truck would have a 5-gallon gas tank in the truck.
In every truck?
That's going out to do maintenance, yes.
Okay. That's it for now.
Ms. Andrews, anything? Okay. The trailers are how long? It's standard,
Yeah, the standard landscape trailer, about 15 to 16 feet.
yeah, okay. And where's the equipment being held now? Where
At
do
another
you
loca-
operate out of?
At another location off-site.
Why do you want to move back?
Once we have approval and, you know, we get all the beautifications done to their property.
Okay. I'm sorry,
I'm good.
want to
No.
follow up? Mr. Clancy, anything?
The only thing I don't think we actually got full clarification on, if you know even, is you mentioned occasional deliveries of stuff for the bins. Do you know how often, or any sense of how often? I know, yeah, you're not running the business right now, but,
Maybe once a week.
okay. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. If it would please the board, I'd like to bring Ms. Kate Keller forward, who is Mr. Boyko's planner.
Sure.
Hi, good evening, Chairman Sullivan, members of the board.
Evening. Board Attorney will swear you in.
Hey, thank you. Do you solemnly swear any testimony you provide before this board will be the truth and the whole truth?
I do.
Okay, and just place your name on the record first.
Sure, my name is Kate Keller, last name is Keller, and I'm a professional planner.
Thank you.
We'll put her credentials on the record, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Keller, if you could please share your credentials. for-
Sure. Hi, everybody. As I said, my name is Kate Keller. I'm a principal with the firm of Phillips Price Greigel Laney Hughes LLC, based in Hoboken, New Jersey. I'm a licensed professional planner in New Jersey. My license is in good standing, and I'm a member of the American Institute of Certified Planners. I've been a licensed planner since approximately 2015, and have provided testimony for about 100 boards throughout the state, including this
We'll
board.
accept your credentials.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Keller, as we begin tonight, could you please, I know the board's already familiar with it, but provide an overview of the D variance relief that Mr. Boyko is requesting?
Sure, absolutely. And please let me know if this is all right to do. If I noticed that before, I think the concept plan was up on the screen. Would it be possible to put that up? Because I just want to be clear on a couple of things that I just want to, just for some clarification. So what we have on the screen right now is the concept plan that was submitted as part of this application. This is not new. And if you just go to page 3 of that, please. Yes, page 3. So, excellent, thank you. So I just wanted to clarify a couple things. One is that first, yes, the applicant is here tonight seeking D1 bifurcated use variance approval in order to operate a landscaping business on the property where he resides. Again, this is something that was sort of gradually took shape over the COVID pandemic, and once the applicant just learned that he was not able to continue doing this, he retained the appropriate professionals. So the one thing that I just want to point out before we, get started on the testimony is I just want to draw to everyone's attention to this concept plan. So this is not a fully engineered site plan, and any fully engineered site plan would be a condition of approval. But I just want to note that if you look on the left, that's the proposed concept plan, and that rear area there is approximately, I believe it's about 230 feet from the fence to the rear property line, which is property that is shared, that is common space for the condominium association to the rear. And then there is township-owned open space to the west. That would be to the left when you're looking at this. So, I just want to orient everybody as to, really how this is located in the center of the site. And as I go through my testimony, I'll point out, again, also, for example, where the bins would be proposed, things like that. Because really, what I'd like to show here is that there is a residential property to the east in another long, narrow lot. This will be located substantially behind that house and also substantially behind the applicant's home, which is honestly kind of so small, it's difficult to see, given the length of the property. So just for starters, just to not to go through all of the testimony that Mark just put onto the record, but we just want to orient ourselves here, which is that we have a lot that is located on County Route 516. It's something that I would describe as almost like an outlier type of lot, in that it's at the very end of a strip of long, deep properties. All of these properties are oversized for their zone. They're located in the R20 zone, which has a minimum lot size of 20,000 square feet. This lot, for example, is 101,000 square feet. It has 125 feet of frontage on the roadway, and it measures approximately 816 feet deep. So what you're seeing there is a property that's almost about 7 times as deep as it is wide. So currently the front 300 feet of the property, and we're measuring you kind of look at the property in thirds, not quite thirds, it doesn't even out exactly, but if just generally, the front third of the property is currently developed with the applicant's home, his driveway, his shed, and his garage, and that will stay that way. The middle third of the property is where the applicant was previously keeping his landscaping business, and that's where all improvements are proposed, only in that middle third of the property. And then the rear third of the property, which to be more precise at this time on the concept plan, is approximately 235 feet. That will be, that a fence is proposed there, and that will be either maintained as existing mature tree coverage, which will potentially be supplemented with more landscape coverage there. So what we're really looking at here is development within that middle third of the property. So, again, to the east, we do have a single-family residence. To the rear, there's common open space in the buffer areas that are associated with the development, which is the commons at Old Bridge. And then there is the township-owned open space to the west. Just to go through, yes.
One proof item, Ms. Keller, have you been on site at the property?
I have. I have been on site several times. Thank you, Michael. Yes, I've been on site, and I have consulted frequently with the applicant and the entire team over the past year and helped prepare the application that's before you tonight. So, just to go into, more, just really before I get into the proofs here, I just think that overall, I just want to reiterate that we are seeking a bifurcated D1 variance. And the intention here is to provide a number of improvements that would allow MCB Landscaping to continue functioning on the site in this limited scope. The applicant's not trying to grow his business beyond the number of trucks that he testified to. And this is a manner that way, by providing the pole barn and the additional landscaping and fencing, this would eliminate all of the outdoor storage except for what's shown on the plan, those 3 bins, and provide additional screening from the neighbors. I'm not going to, I'm happy to take questions as to the operation, once that Mark testified to, and I would like to incorporate that as part of my testimony, but I won't reiterate, but basically this is a small number of trucks that will be entering and leaving the site every day.
I guess just to put a finer point
Yeah.
on it, Ms. Keller, is it your testimony and also your client's understanding that the representations that are being made about the number of trucks and the frequencies would run with the land, essentially?
Yes, as this board is aware, use variances run with the land. If he were to approve for, 4 trucks or 5, and his personal vehicle, 5 trucks total for a home-based business, that's what would be permitted here. It would have to remain exactly the same, or else he would be in violation of his zoning ordinance.
And to your point
of his zoning approval.
And to your point about a home-based business, that would mean that if the property were sold, essentially the owner of the home needs to be the operator of the landscape business under the relief that's being requested.
That's the approval that we're seeking tonight. We're not seeking something where this property will no longer be residential in the future and he'll, just be running a business out of it. This is for the combined use tonight. So just when we've talked to you a little bit about let me just catch my place, the proposed operations and the site improvements. But essentially, this is the concept plan that's being proposed. It's a little hard to see the details at this scale. It's blown up on the right on this sheet. That's a little, just blowing up the proposed concept plan there. But as you can see, a number of evergreens are proposed. I believe green giant arborvitaes are shown here, but that's up to review by the board and site plan, et cetera. That would be along the eastern property line that's shared with the resident there. The applicant is amenable to additional landscaping throughout the site, as you know, we can, and we'll talk about that if needed. A fencing is proposed along the rear disturbance line. I'm not going to call it the rear property line, but just to be beyond the containers. And fencing is also proposed along the easterly property line. So that's really, you know, the extent of what new construction is proposed, along with the cleaned up gravel parking area and circulation drives. And, you know, the applicant would be willing to stipulate that that all of this, that any site plan approval would be substantially similar to what's shown here tonight, as much as that's feasible. So, so just in terms of, just to get into the variance proofs and the zoning compliance, this property is in the R20 residential zone. R20 zone permits single-family residential uses that includes home occupations and home businesses contained inside the dwelling, as well as some agricultural and institutional uses. So a landscaping business that requires, you know, activity, whether it's, even though it's not the primary work, but activity that's taking place outside of the home in the backyard is not permitted in this zone. So that's why we're seeking D1 variance approval. As the board is aware, this is a type of variance that has a specific burden that has to be met. The applicant has to, the board has the power to grant this variance for permitted use in a district restricted against such only in particular cases and for special reasons, and that's known as the positive criteria. Special reasons here, which we'll discuss. For a use that's not considered inherently beneficial would be, we can show that it's particularly suitable for the proposed use. The applicant must also show the negative criteria as well. So, you know, so we are seeking a D1 variance for the use, and I would also just note that your planner would probably raise this if I didn't mention it. So I just want to clarify that technically the pole barn may constitute a second principal use. Second principal structure, in which case, if that is a D1 variance as well, that I would submit these same proofs to permit that as well. So basically, you know, I think that, you know, I hope that I provided some context here as to the location of this site, because it is rather unique. The first time I visited the property, you notice that there are a whole variety of uses in the vicinity. There's an equestrian center a couple doors down. There's open space, and it's a unique situation in this area. And I think that that's what makes this appropriate and particularly suited for the proposed dual residential and landscaping use. The lot is oversized for its zone, and because of that, we're able to provide this enhanced setback and this enhanced buffer, particularly because there is a township-owned property on the other side. This considerable depth, which 800 plus feet, allows for the use to be located beyond both the neighbor's dwelling and their own dwelling, which really keeps it as the character of a residential neighborhood when viewed from the front. The rearmost 200 plus feet of the lot will also retain its existing mature trees. And we have had some discussion with the neighbors to the rear, which which I think that everyone's in agreement that there's a lot of improvements that we have proposed here. This new concept plan will allow the applicant to provide sufficient parking and storage for his vehicles inside this new building. And again, the building is 40 by 60 feet. That's what's proposed. And to answer the chairman's question, per my discussion with the applicant and our brief conversations with our engineer, this is appropriate to hold all of the equipment that has been discussed tonight. And that will obviously be confirmed at the time of any future site plan approval, especially as far as circulation goes. But from my discussions, that's my understanding.
And on that note, Ms. Keller, obviously we would get into this more at the site plan phase, but can you describe some of the considerations that were taken into account in the development of this site plan, the location of the pole barns, the location of the bins, in order to try and mitigate any impacts?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you look at this, this concept plan, the bins are at the upper left of the right-hand side of the right-hand blown-up version of the concept plan. And the idea there is that those will be as far away from any other, the neighbor's property and and the homeowner's property as possible, in a manner that they can be accessed easily for both drop-off and pickup, and will not interfere with any other circulation or parking. In terms of the location of the pole barn, there were really two things that we had to balance when we were trying to decide when we were looking at the site layout. One is that, do we want to try to keep activity away from the easterly property line, or have a building there, which would really in turn screen that activity. So that's the idea, is that the pole barn and the adjacent landscaping will be significantly off the neighbor's property compared to what's currently there, and will also provide actual screening via the building as well, not to mention the fact that activities will be taking place in there.
And there's additional screening as well, I believe, in terms of landscaping.
Yes, yes, a fence along that entire property line, as well as staggered green giant arborvitaes and additional plantings as needed if desired. But that's basically how we ended up with this. And this is a concept plan. This was prepared by a consulting engineer, and so the idea of the circulation and the sizing was done to that nature. So I think that, just that segues into my next comment, which is really just that we are providing sufficient parking inside the storage building. And it's really, the idea is to keep this a clean, neat site. And to that extent, Mr. Boyko is going to continue, and his family are going to continue to reside in this lot and intending on operating a home-based business. So I think that really, more than anything, speaks to his particular interest in maintaining high-quality conditions on this property, especially if this were to be approved and he would put that type of investment in here. In terms of advancing purposes of zoning, in my opinion, this advances purpose A, which is encourage municipal action to guide the appropriate use or development of lands in the state to promote the public safety, morals, and general welfare. This applicant is seeking to formalize his home business use, which is, part of the fabric of the municipality, and he serves clients in and around the area, and especially when it comes to snow removal services, he really is helping out in the case of an emergency. The applicant has agreed to comply with all township regulations and all outside agency regulations regarding the use, as we will discuss tonight. It also promotes Purpose C, which provide adequate light, air, and open space. Really, just in that the large size of the property allows for this continued use without impacting, either his own home or the enjoyment of others. Finally, it provides sufficient space in an appropriate location for a variety of residential and commercial uses. While this is a residential zone, this is a unique situation where it's able to be very isolated, in my opinion. That also speaks to, as this is a D1 variance that is not considered inherently beneficial, we have to provide a reconciliation under the Medici case, which basically we have to prove, why should this, how can the board grant this approval, even given the fact that the council does not permit this use in the zone via the zoning ordinance. And again, this is what we call almost like an edge case. It's located kind of at the end of a stretch of residential dwellings. It's unique lot sizes, and the R20 zone covers a substantial portion of the township, and that's especially in this eastern portion, east of Route 9. And its zone cannot address every single case here. And I think that as a lot that's very oversized for the zone, especially in terms of the depth, the particular suitability is also speaks to the fact that we can meet all of the existing setback requirements. Everything that can be maintained, but still, I think that we provided a substantial buffer on the applicant's personal property. And just briefly, because I think I've touched on a lot of these, we need to address the negative criteria, which is that we have to show that the variance can be granted without resulting in substantial detriment to the public good or substantial impairment to the zone plan or zoning ordinance. So in terms of the public good, the applicant is seeking to take this property and he's seeking to modernize and upgrade the use. He's going to screen it from neighbors. He will be clearly demarcated from both the on-site and neighboring residential uses, where everything will be in this pole barn. And the applicant has also agreed, I would note that, and it would be in the pole barn, which will allow it to be clearly demarcated from the residential uses, which will help the area and the property maintain its residential character. So, in terms of neighboring properties, I addressed the fact that there are a number of different uses in this area, and I think that plus the idea of the zone plan and zoning ordinance, that plus the irregular shape speaks to the mitigating the impact on the zone plan and zoning ordinance. So, in conclusion, I would say given the small number of employees, the fact that most services are not performed on the site, the limited number of trips in and out, and the benefits of all of the new structures, the granting of the use variance would not cause substantial detriment to the public good or substantially impair the zone plan or zoning ordinance. And I believe that the variances can be granted. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Keller, for that testimony. Just the last point I think we're going to touch on, Mr. Chairman, is that, as I alluded to in my opening statement, our client, through his professionals, has been working with the neighbors to the rear of the property. There's a homeowners association subdivision that abuts the property to the rear. We were contacted by attorneys for the HOA who are present here tonight, and we also consulted with a planner that they retained specific to this application. And I'd like to just put on the record some conditions that were discussed with them and that they had requested and that our client is agreeable to, again, in our effort to work with the neighbors, be a good neighbor here, and try to figure out what could be amenable to those who contacted us to express their concerns.
1 second before you do that. All right. Mr. Collins, you can continue.
Thank you, Chairman. If it's okay with you, Ms. Keller actually consulted directly with the association's planner, so I'm just going to have her address these specific conditions, which I think have already been established in testimony, but I just want to confirm them for the record and for their benefit as well.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we spoke with our client earlier today, and we agreed upon all of these, and some of these have been established, but I just want to be clear here. Per the request of the association, they asked that hours be limited from 8 to 6. And whether weekends would be included. And the testimony that you've heard tonight and that we would agree to is that trucks will leave no earlier, operations will begin no earlier than 8 and will typically return by 6. However, during summer days, that may be closer to 7 or maybe 5 in the winter. No work is done on the site during the day or after trucks return. And no weekend hours are proposed. The only exceptions to this would be for a snow emergency situation, or of course, if Mark and his family are using their personal vehicles, but those would not be coming out of the pole barn. The applicant asked for, the association also asked for a limitation to 4 trucks to be stored overnight in the pole barn. And that, yes, as Mark testified to, there will be a maximum of 4 work trucks in the pole barn, plus Mark's personal, though commercial vehicle, which per township ordinance is permitted to be parked in his rear/side yard and would continue to be. And everything would be stored in the pole barn except for that, pending site plan approval. Next is trucks. They're asking for trucks to be parked back in, so there would be no backing alarms in the morning. And the applicant has also agreed to that, to vehicles would be parked in order to minimize the use of backup alarms. The association also asked that on-site outdoor storage be limited to the 3 bins shown with no freestanding piles, to which we absolutely agree. Rear yard area to remain in woods, in which we have agreed that it will show, it shows approximately 230 to 240 feet on the concept plan, and that's the intention, that would all remain wooded area and be supplemented if needed. They've asked that the pole barn be a neutral color that is generally non-reflective, to which we agree. There were some questions about stormwater management, to which we agreed to direct stormwater away from their lands. And, that has not been finalized, but it will all be reviewed in depth during a future site plan approval and would be subject to all state and township regulations. Finally, just a couple more concerns about general morning noise, which, and all instructions and anything early would be focused within the barn, which is no issue given the small size of the crew. Number 9 is regarding, they'd like to review the landscape plans, which we provided testimony as to our conceptual plans tonight. But again, this would all be part of a future site plan application and would be subject to board and professional review. Finally, they had a note on any tree clearing in the area and whether we work that out with township staff, which there will be some testimony, I think, from, we are aware that there has been clearing on the site, and the applicant has agreed to work with township professionals to address any concerns, including from the tree expert and also from outside agencies. And then finally, the association has requested an 8-foot fence along that back, the rear area of disturbance, which I believe may technically require a C variance, but we are absolutely willing to provide an 8-foot fence if that is the request, if the board is comfortable with that.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Keller. So I think, board, that is our case in chief, and Ms. Keller is certainly happy to answer any questions, and otherwise we would rest there.
Sure. When would we hear, I read that, well, you don't have a traffic engineer, the planner is proffering the testimony for traffic. Are we going to hear that now? Are we going to hear that at site plan? When are we going to hear?
The planner did provide a traffic impact report, which I think was deemed sufficient for completeness,
Yeah.
so she could certainly speak to that. if
Sure.
you'd like, Chair.
I would, again, as noted in your planner's letter, that's not something planners typically do. I would look at this, I proffered that more in the context of the use, as then, I'm not doing analysis of traffic conditions or traffic concerns. But, based on the factual evidence provided by the applicant of the number of trucks in and out in the morning, and the number which would range, as he said, from 2 to 4, and then that same would be returning. It's my opinion as a planner that there would not be a substantial impact on the area. We reserve the right, and we would be happy to provide a more formal traffic analysis looking at conditions, but, based on those numbers, I don't foresee any negative impacts.
Thank you. Ms. Sawant? Mr. Darji?
Sure, I'll go first because
Thank you.
I know Venus probably has more planning stuff to talk about. But real quickly, with regard to the traffic, I'm being a little too loud, I'm sorry. With regard to traffic, we do have quite a few comments regarding traffic. Is it your assertion that those can get addressed at site plan? Is that, because typically traffic is something that this board takes into
Yeah.
consideration quite a bit as part of a use variance application. That's why I was kind of surprised, with all due respect. I know you're a wonderful planner, but as far as traffic goes, I was surprised to not have a traffic engineer's summation.
Sure, and I agree with that. I'm on the municipal side often as well, and and from both aspects, traffic is inherently part of a use. Our assertion is that based on the small number of vehicles and the fact that there will not be any public coming to the site at any time, as Mark stipulated, Mr. Boyko stipulated, many of his employees carpool. I can't provide a detailed analysis. I'm not a traffic engineer. I'm not even a transportation planner. But in terms of, so but I am willing, I'm stating under oath and to the best of my knowledge that I don't believe that there will be any substantial impact.
I mean, I guess
in my opinion.
our concerns, which, again, to summarize the comments that we had in our memo, were really with regard to the impact on the roadway and safety concerns at the road. It's a very busy roadway. To have commercial vehicles where it's not anticipated, because most of traffic issues are with regard to driver expectation, right? So you have drivers on the roadway, users on the roadway that aren't expecting commercial vehicles to be entering and exiting. I understand the number of trips is limited based off of the size of the operation, but really has to do with some of the safety concerns. Has there been any contact with the county at all? Because I imagine there's going to be improvements that are going to be required at that driveway because now it's a commercial driveway. It's a 10-foot wide driveway going back over 200 feet to the home. So again, that's something that's not typical of a commercial driveway, which I'm sure Vina will get into why that's sort of incongruous with the residential nature of this area.
I think we would agree that, the county planning board would have jurisdiction.
What they do.
Yeah,
That's not,
of course.
that's not up for debate, but the question is, has there been any contact with the county as far as what you're going to be looking at? Because a commercial driveway, again, is kind of incongruous with this neighborhood.
We have not, to answer your question, spoken with the county, but we certainly anticipate and know that we have to do that, and our client is prepared to make any necessary improvements that they would request to accommodate the use.
Yeah, and I would also, I don't know if you want, I don't think we need to go through each of these, but just for example, just to give you an idea of what our thought process was, we have a comment here on page 7 of your report, which indicates, will the driveway be able to accommodate 2 vehicles entering and exiting? And so, while from a commercial site plan perspective, that's typically something that you look at. This is a case where Mr. Boyko will have full control over who is entering and exiting the driveway and controlling the timing of all of that.
Right.
So, the idea is that it will be, with an operation of this size, it is much more controlled.
I mean, what about like materials and things like that that are delivered to the site? What size trucks will be accessing the site?
That
and
I
then-
cannot answer.
and
That
then
I cannot answer.
Getting on and off of the site and all
Yeah.
that. I mean,
And that's something that I think that we can discuss with our client about how to best make that work for the site.
because those are things that, as you know, those are things that the board will consider as part of the use variance. That's why it's kind of important that we
Yeah.
have that information. On how is a commercial, what size are the trucks that are delivering the materials? How are they getting onto the site? How are they turning around? Because we certainly aren't backing out of a 200-foot driveway.
And just again to note something on here, no one will be parking, no one will be doing any loading on Route 516, just to be clear.
Well, yeah, that-
Yeah, so I mean, just to clarify, that was a note in here.
But my concern is how are they getting
I
in
know,
and out
okay.
of this site, right?
No,
That's a
understood.
concern. Moving on from traffic, I think is an open issue that I think the board's going to want a lot more testimony on. As far as the outdoor storage and everything, I just want to make it clear. Other than the 3 bins, there will be no outdoor storage of materials or equipment of any kind.
The reason for this pole barn is to store everything in the pole barn.
Just making sure.
Yes.
Other than the bins, there will be no outdoor. I only say this because I love landscapers. I've been working with landscapers for 30 years. They do a great job with everybody's property, but their own. And so the question again is, other than the 3 bins, there will be no outdoor storage of any kind, of any equipment or materials.
No, there will not be,
Okay.
and that's partially the reason for the size of the pole barn
Okay.
that we're asking for here. He's looking for the 3 bins here, and another thing is that, I would note that a lot of that space will be needed for turnaround and things like that. So not trying to take up any of that space outside.
Because that area, I'm sorry again, that area between the stone and the house, that fence area, seems awfully tempting to put stuff in.
Yeah.
I'm certainly not an engineer, but I would submit that the engineer did have to take into account turning radiuses.
No,
and like that.
I'm not, I'm talking
I would
about
also- yeah.
I'm talking about the lawn area.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah, and that's Mr. Boyko's backyard. His family lives in that house. And I think, part of the reason that it's, first of all, we're stipulating on the record that nothing's proposed there. And I think that's part of the reason why, we have those additional evergreens that are new. Those are proposed underneath there. It really is intended to demarcate the rear from that.
Okay, I just wanted to
Yeah.
state that for the record.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate
If
that.
the board does act favorably, that would probably be condition 1A. And the other question I had with regard to, and I know I told you it wouldn't be very long, I'm sorry.
That's okay, that's okay.
The other question I had was regarding what's noted on the plan as existing limit of outdoor storage. So that's where I'm guessing that the applicant prior to vacating the site had kept some equipment and materials or whatever.
Exactly.
That's not going to be a storage area in the future either.
No, the applicant is proposing to actually reduce the overall size of this, maybe if you take, or I should say is proposing to pull that in from the rear property line.
Okay.
So that area, there's currently, you see almost like, if you look on the concept plan, you'll see kind of like a half moon that's cleared between with the proposed fence and the area that's mature trees. that will be not touched. That will not be part of this application. That whole rear yard will be.
Would the applicant be willing to vegetate that area?
Yes.
And then the fence, last question, the fence that we're talking about, you said an 8-foot fence. There's a fence that's labeled along the back, right behind the bins, that's labeled as a 6-foot fence. Is that going to be the 8-foot fence?
That's what has been requested by the neighbors, and then we'd be willing to do that. And I would also note that, we probably would have some kind of door in there to be able to maintain any new
To be
landscaping.
able to go back there,
Yes.
That's, just want to clarify that, Mr. Chairman. I don't have any other questions. One last thing on regarding stormwater management. This is more for the record more than anything else. What you're proposing as far as disturbance and amount of motor vehicle surface, it's going to qualify as a major stormwater management project, so you'll be required to meet stormwater quantity requirements and stormwater quality requirements, which are going to require, again, probably some sort of either by a retention basin or some sort of water quality basin. Has any thought been given to where that would be?
It's not from me. Our engineer had a limited scope at this time, but, if he's aware of the current standards and what would have to be met.
And I would also note, there's a language in the review letter about getting an LOI, and we're well aware of the steps that would need to be taken between now and site plan, and that would absolutely be addressed.
Okay, so should the footprint of your work, of your actual work area change from what's being presented this evening, then that would probably subject you to an amended use variance. Should, let's say, you get into the site plan stage and realize, hey, we need to put a biobasin based off the topography of the land and what have you. If your site has to expand for some reason, that would basically require you to amend your use variance application?
Yeah, I would say, either the site expanding or, if something had to be even reduced in size, and it's up to the, it's at the discretion.
Yeah, I just wanted to make
Where,
sure.
yeah, we, like I said, substantially similar is usually the term that we use because things do change. But, that would be up to.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that's stated
Yes,
for the
we are
record,
aware of
for the
that.
applicant's edification as well, that, if the board does go and grant this use variance, if during the engineering of the site, things changed appreciably, you basically would be back before another use variance and this whole process all over again.
And to that point, we're well aware that, the board has a second bite at the apple, essentially. And so, if we get positive feedback here, we'd want to take that and any feedback into account and make sure it's properly addressed in the site plan.
Thank you, Mr.
And
Collins.
that's all I have, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
You sure?
I'll reserve. How about that?
I think I agree with Rakesh's comments on the traffic. I would really want to see more testimony, and I think if the application were to be carried, then maybe it would be a good idea for you guys to reach out to the county and get their input as well, because this traffic is going to change the land use pattern or is going to set a precedent, because you have to the easterly side residential homes, none of them have home businesses. There is a dry cleaners, they have filed an application with the zoning board, but it has been a dry cleaners, it's a pre-existing non-conformity. So with introducing a use which has not really been permitted before, you're changing the residential character. I think traffic or having traffic testimony will be critical to the granting of the use variance. The other thing which I didn't hear in the testimony is when you seek a D1 use variance, the most important is your site suitability, but the other aspect is the proposed use for this site better over what is currently permitted in the zone? And I didn't hear that because it's very hard that you have other residential uses in the neighborhood and now you're introducing a mixed use concept. I'll just list all the things that I want you to elaborate, and the board, I'm sure, would want you to elaborate too. When looking at near maps and the aerials, I have not seen anywhere within the neighborhood a residential home having an accessory structure as big as this. To me, this is not an accessory structure. It's a principal structure because accessory structures in residential zones are limited to 600 feet, square feet. You're proposing something that is 4 times larger. Again, should the board act favorably, I would recommend that one of the condition would be that no outdoor storage. Again, the deliveries goes back to the traffic. I would hold off from making any comments until I hear a traffic testimony. But I do want to hear site suitability. I do want to hear the land use patterns. I do want to hear from you about the size of the accessory structure.
Sure. So, I think I will just reiterate a couple things and I'll go. I thank you for pointing out where I may have been deficient. First of all, I did notice that in your review letter that you acknowledged that this may be a second principal structure on the site. And on the reading of the ordinance, I would agree with that. And I think that, if the board to the extent that the board would have that, we would ask for that as part of our D variance approval.
So in your analysis, did you find any other property that has a second principal structure within that area?
I did not find one that specifically, but no, I have to admit that I did not specifically
So
look on other
I just want the board to
properties.
understand that the granting of the variance sets a precedent for.
I would disagree with that, Ms. Swan, that, every application stands alone.
I'm trying to understand whether the land use pattern is consistent. I'm trying, see, when you're defending a D1, there is site suitability, there's also consistency in land use pattern, and then there is why the permitted use within the zone cannot be, why is the site not suitable for the permitted use, and why do you have 2 principal uses on the property, right? So I'm asking you in terms of that question.
Sure. So yes, I think I acknowledge that, this, for D1, you have to show particular suitability. That's really the crux of a D1 that's not inherently beneficial. The Price versus Himeji case, which was decided in 2013, is when the court really established kind of the direction for that. And you have to show that it's especially well-suited for the use, in spite of the fact it's not permitted in the zone. And you can show that there's things that distinguish the property from surrounding sites, et cetera. You also, I would just note that you don't have to show that there is no other potential, this is the only place where this can be built. This is the only suitable property. So, in that context, I would just go back to some of my earlier testimony, which is that, you have a row of lots, residential lots, for the most part. I would argue that some of them are not completely residential in nature. There's an equestrian facility, about 4 lots down, while agricultural uses are permitted in this zone. I would say that it means that, that shows that this character is not specifically residential here. There is also the unique situation where you have a large buffer to the rear and you have common open space further to the rear. So it's really isolated in a sense, especially given that it's 816 feet deep, in a sense that you're not going to see in most R20 districts throughout Old Bridge. For example, if this was a 20,000 square foot lot, I don't think we'd be here having this conversation. So, it's a unique setting here, and especially because there is the open space further on the west side. So that's really, when you talk about just the physical location of this property, that is what, I think shows particular suitability. That is, it situates it within this location where it's at the end of a row of residences, and I think it's unique in its character, especially compared to both the underlying zoning and the surrounding area. When you take a ride down this road, you see residences on the right side, but you also see a variety of, you see there are some trailers or some commercial vehicles parked outside, and it almost really has in a way, like a quasi-rural character, in my opinion. And it's just in this small area here. So I think that is really, when I say the particular suitability, this is not something that's being proposed within a a compact residential subdivision. This is not something being proposed on the edge of a cul-de-sac. This is being proposed on a site that where it will be really hidden in a way that it cannot be on a smaller property. So that, you know, will address to specific, particular suitability. And again, you know, this is a zone that has some certain limited commercial uses, only in the sense that they are home-based businesses are permitted as accessory uses. And, you know, those are limited here, that what the ordinance allows. And that's really to encourage businesses that don't operate outside the house. So the applicant, you know, is an entrepreneur, he has a business, and he is trying to take this property in its unique setting and, you know, comply the best that he can with the township's, the intentions of the township's ordinances for all the performance standards that are required, to screen these uses as much as possible, and to provide significant amount of landscaping in an area where, you know, it has, he was operating it without, you know, he did not have any issues as far as his operation was concerned previously, and while that has since been reduced, he's proposing to keep the scale small, which will, in my opinion, you know, help keep it more cohesive with the residential neighborhood.
So, Ms. Keller, I still didn't hear, maybe I'll reframe the question. One of the sections of the site suitability order, the law requires you to justify why the proposed use is better suited for the site over what is proposed by or what is permitted by the zone. And that's where I'm a little conflicted, because I didn't hear that. Like, why does the board, and I'm not trying to, I just want it to be on record in your testimony, that why is it that the site is better suited for the mixed use, like this residential home and the commercial use, over just a residential use? Why is there a special reason why the board should allow that type of a use when in the neighborhood there is none? So that's the question.
Sure. I mean, I would, you know, I have a slight disagreement there, in that I don't think that part of the D-variance criteria is that you have to show that that one use is better than the other. I think you have to show that it's particularly suited for the use that's being proposed. That does not mean that it's not suited for another use.
I don't agree.
Oh,
It's okay. It's okay.
And I think that I've put my testimony on the record as to why I think that this is a use that is particularly suited for this joint residential, you know, almost like a commercial aspect of the commercial, a resident operating a commercial business on his property.
And in response to that, if I could just ask Ms. Keller to kind of place on the record, you know, you've observed the current conditions of the property, which we haven't discussed in significant detail, but can you discuss how those would be modified under the proposed site plan?
Sure. I think that aesthetically the property would be upgraded. You know, it's also, this is kind of this is a large piece of property for people to maintain. As a residential property. You end up with a lot of area in the rear that, you know, that is really not necessarily really going to be able to be maintained by a typical residential homeowner. And I think here what you're proposing is a number of high quality new screening along the side, new fencing, and basically enhance cleanup of the site, especially because they'll have to meet a variety of township and statewide approvals that would not otherwise affect residential property. Like, for example, anything with stormwater, related to stormwater. Residences typically are not subject to the same type of requirements as preliminary major site plan, major developments. So those are the kind of improvements you would see on this site.
One last thing, I don't know who's going to answer the fire chief's letter, because there was a letter issued on March 6th, which says that I find this plan unsatisfactory at this time.
Ms. Sawant,
I think he requires a fire hydrant, and I don't know who's going to cover that part.
You want to testify to the fact?
Sure. We would testify, and we have photographs, which we can, I don't think we've entered any other exhibits. It does not have a distance on it, but there is a fire hydrant within, do we have
Have you reached out to the fire chief
we would-
after you received the letter?
We did not, because we brought photographs that would demonstrate that there is a fire hydrant within immediate vicinity of the driveway, which we thought would address that concern. Regarding, the testimony that you've proposed for the board, that is noted, and we will take that into account. I spoke with the board attorney prior to tonight's meeting, and given the lack of full membership, we will be taking the board up on a continuance at the conclusion of tonight, and so we certainly could take under advisement any additional items that you're asking for.
Right, I think it would be beneficial, since it's going to be carried, that you reach out to the fire chief.
We'd be happy to.
Yep.
You offering the picture?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman, if we can make this A1.
Sure. Is it to scale?
Yes, it is.
This is a photograph of the frontage of the applicant's property.
Thank you.
And we'll provide additional details, and, as our client is a volunteer.
I mean, I have the
And actually,
the Fire Prevention Bureau letter in front of me, and I think the hiccup on it was that it wasn't shown on the plan that was submitted, so, but I think Ms. Sawant's right. I think the best thing to do is just reach out to the fire
Absolutely.
department and
We're happy to
let
get
them
that.
sign off on it before next time. If
We're
you're
happy to
already
get
in
that cleared up.
compliance, it might just be a matter of updating your plan or something.
Absolutely. We're happy to get that cleared up.
A1 depicts the front of the applicant's property. That's not the applicant's driveway at the top, right?
His driveway's here. It's from,
Right, would be the
Sorry,
one,
the point of view is from his driveway, yes.
so it would be to the east.
Yes. Based on the, just based on the lot widths, it's that fire hydrant's probably about 150 feet from the driveway.
A 300-foot long roadway. You're resting your case now?
I am, Mr.
There is an
Chairman.
object,
Subject to the right to, on the continuance to address
course.
the issues that.
you're resting for the evening.
That is correct. I do want to clarify.
Yeah. There's an objector's attorney here, I believe, correct?
I believe, yes.
And I think,
Certainly at least one
and
party.
we didn't even get to the public portion yet, and are you a professional, sir, or are you testifying as public? Okay, so you want to, you're not part of the objector's case in a sense?
I'm objecting and he's objecting.
Oh, well, would that be public versus the
Well,
objector's case?
So at this point, if you're asking for a continuance, is that kind of where we're at with this?
I would ask that we hear from any objectors, since they're all here tonight, and,
Typically, they finish the case in principle first before we would move on to an objector's case. What ordinarily would happen at this point, since you've put two witnesses on, is we would allow questions from objectors, public in general, and kind of take them in turn as they come up. That'll also obviously will provide you a tremendous amount of feedback, knowing that you're going to come back and it'll give you,
if I'm hearing you right, Mr. Clancy, the board would recommend we continue our case in chief, and then the objectors can be heard after that's concluded.
Well, I don't want to put words in your mouth. It sounds like
No,
your plan was to continue your case in chief after you come back, or no?
Are you, I think that we have a couple comments, but I think what we, and I'll let Mr. Collins say this, but I believe the intention was that we would like to, I'd be happy to take questions from the objectors if that's the board's procedure, or however that works.
I think if you're done with what you're presenting for tonight,
We are.
noting that you're asking for a continuance, obviously you're not going to be calling for a vote tonight. You've already placed that on the record. And there's some additional work that sounds like you want to get done in the background here. I think the appropriate thing is to stop or to have them stop for the evening, but we open it up obviously for public questions, limited to the testimony that's been put on, because we do have both witnesses still here.
If that's the board's pleasure, no objection.
It would be normal to do so.
We want to respect those norms.
My only question is the objector case will not come until they're done and prior to, obviously, any votes.
So just to
Correct.
clarify, is this just regular public comment, not subject to
I'm going to open it to the
cross-examination?
public, right, yes.
It's public It's question, yeah, question for witnesses. It is open to the general public, including the objectors.
Okay, so these are
obviously.
questions of witnesses, not testimony.
No, limited to the testimony from the witnesses tonight.
The witnesses are not providing testimony of their own, they're asking questions of the, of the witnesses.
Correct.
Yes,
Correct. Questions of your witnesses.
absolutely. Understood.
Okay. This is matter 44-2023Z MCB Landscaping. This is for home-based landscaping business requiring D variances. I'm going to open this up to the public. We will have a microphone placed in the center. We'll try to get to everyone. We have plenty of time. I would ask when you do come up, you would state your name, please. The board attorney will swear any witness in, or any one wants to ask questions.
Yes, good evening. My name is Alan Gorski. I'm with the law firm of Gorski and Knowlton. I represent the Commons at Old Bridge. On the photo up there, they're in the back, okay, on the top back. I also have with me Craig Rankamp, who's our planner. We had a very productive discussion, 7 o'clock on Friday. Unfortunately, my clients did not receive the notice of the March hearing until the March date. And despite the fact it was dated when it was dated, but we chalk that up to the post office and not to Mr. Collins. I did have productive discussions with Mr. Collins when we heard the concerns of the residents with our planner present. Our planner contacted Ms. Kelly, and we had the 11 concerns that were set forth. Mr. Collins addressed our concerns on the record before, and if each of those were made part of the record, we're relatively satisfied, still reserving the right to object to future site plan application, because each of the concerns that we have, when they were addressed by Ms. Keller, all said, well, subject to the future site plan things. We're less concerned about the traffic upon Route 516 because we're in the back. We are concerned more about the buffer because we understand the trees have been removed from that buffer, not necessarily by the applicant. I don't know if they were by the township, but even though this landscaping business has been operating there since 2020 when he moved in, we did not notice it in 2020 and 2021 and 2022. There's been an uptick in business since then. So we have some concern about the growth of the business, but those concerns have been addressed by limiting the number of trucks and the number of employees. So that really addressed our concerns. I do have concerns about the hours. They indicated it would not be weekends, so that made us pretty satisfied. I know that if you're doing commercial landscaping, a lot of weekend work there. Residents don't want people mowing their lawns during the Saturday and Sunday. So as long as they're don't expand into doing a lot of commercial work, that will limit the amount of weekend traffic and maybe evening traffic that they would have. We are concerned about the water and the runoff, and the point that was made about the detention basin is of deep concern to us. I'm not sure where you would put it on this property. You're not necessarily going to put it in the backyard between the house and the gravel. I think the intention here would be to put it in the back near us, and that creates another set of problems there. It's already pretty wet in the swale between these properties, and I just feel that, you know, where you put the detention basin is very concerning to me. I do see that this may be considered an inherently beneficial use in that.
They've already stipulated this is not an inherently
Okay.
beneficial.
Okay, well, I mean, the snow removal would help us out if they would do it. We've been having problems with our snow removal contractors, so that's why I mentioned that. And I don't.
Provide some benefits.
So I really don't have any other questions except just reserving the right to object to the future site plan application. And I do have my planner here in case my planner, Mr. Rankamp, has any questions.
Okay. Excellent.
And I do have the president of the board, Anthony Velez, if you have anything you want to say.
So I would just reiterate, generally speaking, I thank the objector's attorney for placing his appearance on the board and let us know that they're in on this, and it sounds good that they've had some conversations. That cuts down on a lot of usually the back and forth. But just limit any questions at this stage in the game to any testimony that's been placed on the board. There'll be time for general comments, usually at the end of this, and if the objectors are putting on an affirmative case, they'll get the same process. They'll put their witnesses on. Their witnesses will get to be questioned based upon their testimony, and anybody else can put a general comment on at the end. So I would just ask that we limit the questions to what has been placed on the record by the witnesses today, knowing that we're not done tonight.
Sir? Yeah, by all means.
Yes, my question, I have so many questions just
You're-
pertaining to the credibility.
You representing yourself as an attorney at law?
Yes, I'm Jonathan Michael Kozlik Sr., I'm the neighbor.
Hold on, one thing at a time.
Yeah. Would you state your name?
Place your name on the record, please.
Jonathan Michael Kozlik, Kozlik.
K-O-Z-L-I-K.
Sir?
And we're going to place you under oath, I guess, right? Oh, no, this is just a general question. Yeah. General question, go ahead.
Yes, so this portion is being limited to the testimony that was here? Because I would very much I really would need a long time. I really would like to put an entire opposition case together against this. So we can do that another time because this is getting continued?
That would be after the case in principle concludes.
Okay, so this is going to get continued and I can stay, because I have much more to say than this. But I would just say that the general testimony here was not credible. I've lived next door to this man since he moved in. I've seen it go from one truck to...
I'm going to respectfully object.
Yeah,
These are questions.
again, there will be time for general comment at the end.
Okay, so just...
Questions as to what was put onto the record tonight.
Okay,
Of either witness.
so why would you say 2 employees when I see on your coronavirus loan application 6 employees and 7 employees? That'll be my only question before.
If anybody wants to...
It sounded like a statement rather than a question to me. I would ask.
Are you asking how many employees there are?
Yeah, why on the coronavirus loan applications does it say 7 employees when I'm hearing that there are 2 or 3 employees? That's from 2021. I believe 2020 was 6 employees.
Mr. Boyko was under oath, and he said what the amount of employees was 4, correct? Extra than yourself? Yeah. That's what he put on the record under oath, sir.
That's my only question.
Okay. Gentleman next to you, you want to be heard? Step up, please. Once again, sir, would you state your name, please?
Robert Vernaccio.
Can you spell the last name for me, please?
V is Victor, E-R-N-A-C-H-I-O.
Thank you, sir.
Go ahead, sir.
I've lived here.
Under oath?
For questions,
Okay.
we don't need to...
I've lived here for over 55 years. It's been a quiet, good neighborhood. And then this has happened. He's brought in, and I heard testimony of how much equipment he has. It's wrong. I walk my
I'm going to
yard
object
10
again.
times a day.
Objection. These are not questions.
Pardon?
These are not questions.
What you're doing is you're trying to make a statement about what your opposition is to this. This is a question period. There's a later time for...
Question for them.
If you have a certain question of the planner who testified under oath, or Mr. Boyko, you can put them through us. You can ask us.
Okay, I can
Try
question.
and get them satisfied for you.
I can question a pole barn.
Can you question the pole barn? They're seeking an
It doesn't conform to anything in the neighborhood.
Well, they're seeking an application that would include a pole barn.
Well, I'm against it.
Okay.
You know,
That's fair.
and as far as they're going to hide the trucks in that pole barn, maybe I might be out of. But anyway, they're building a pole barn to hide the trucks. You're doing one thing to do something else.
Continued objection.
Again, if you're going to put on an objector's case, and if you're with the attorney, I guess, as a neighbor of yours?
Our neighbors.
Okay. That would be at the next session, probably when the condo association, I believe, that is behind is also going to present an objector's case. So that happens, if I do this, say this legally, after they have presented their case. So once the applicant presents their case and finishes, then we listen to the objector's case, just like we listened to the applicant's case.
Okay,
All right?
yeah.
I want you to understand, I don't want you to not think we want to listen to you. It's
No,
just
but
not
I
the
mean, this has
procedure.
been jerking around for 2 years now.
Well, it's the first time we've heard it.
Oh, okay.
So I understand your angst, but this board has heard this for the first time tonight.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else want to be heard before the board this evening? Please raise your hand or come forward. I see no hands, so I'll close the public portion. Final comments, sir?
No, Mr. Chairman, I think, in sum, just to kind of sum up today's testimony, Mr. Boyko has his own small business. He's simply looking to keep his equipment at the property in order to allow his business to operate. The proofs have been placed on the record concerning the proposed considerations in terms of the site plan concept to mitigate any impacts of that and, in fact, to improve the properties. Which both meets an engineering, which we'll get into with the engineering standpoint, and we've duly noted the comments and concerns of the board planner, but also addressing the planning proofs. We do ask for this continuance so we could address some of the specific comments that were raised, and we believe that in the end, even in spite of an objector's case, that Mr. Boyko has in fact met the proofs to obtain the relief, and we greatly appreciate the board's attention and time to this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. Let's get a date.
Yeah, that would be great.
Our next D night is August 1st.
August 1st?
Yep.
Is that? I don't see.
Vina popped out.
Okay. This will be August 1st with no further notice. Anybody here this evening on this matter? In case you didn't catch that, it'll be on our agenda for the August 1st meeting, which starts at 7:30 PM. Not necessarily it will be on at 7:30, but you will not receive further notice in the mail. So please mark your calendar. You can also look at any time and just go to, on the internet and go to the Township of Fallbridge, put in Zoning Board of Adjustment. And everything is listed there as to agenda and what's going to be heard. So I would recommend that to anybody who's interested in anything, and I'll say this to the people who are watching at home. If you ever have any interest, all you have to do is go to the website, look up Township of Fallbridge Zoning Board of Adjustment. You'll see the agendas and the dates. If that's not satisfactory, by all means, call the zoning department in the township and you'll get that information. But it's readily available, okay? So,
Mr. Chairman, if I could
Go
just
ahead,
interject
Counselor.
on the date. I want to be mindful of the board's time, and I know all the board members put in a lot of volunteer time to administer this process.
Thank you.
My client has been trying to effectuate this relief for over a year, and I'm just curious if the board ever considers a special meeting or some other, whether there's some other alternative to have this come back
the
sooner.
board doesn't have the power to set the agenda. We have the power to listen to the agenda. I am told that we are backed up through the end of the year. Mr. Wan could probably verify that as the planner, and I'm sure, I'll refer it to, rather than Ms. Borcelli. They'd like to move it up, but I'm told that we're full to the end of the year.
We are really packed, and the problem is just putting like 4 or 5 applications one night is not helping. I tried to help developers by putting in more applications, but we're not able to anyways finish them, and we're carrying. So there is nothing really available before August. I really can't help.
Okay.
Once
I
again,
guess
I don't have control over the schedule. so.
I understand. I would just say to Mr. Wan and to the board, if there were an opportunity due to cancellation or anything,
definitely
please
do
let us
that.
know, and we
Yes.
would consider renoticing in order to try and move this
We
up.
definitely do that because sometimes what happens is, and I have allotted a date and the applicant doesn't want to proceed because I don't want to have a backlog either. But at the same time, Maureen and I have been brainstorming how do we process. We have so many applications coming in.
I think what, I think basically if there were, we're willing to go to the 1st August without further notice, but would it be basically acceptable if a date were to open before
Yeah,
then?
yeah.
If we were to renotice?
I typically reach out to the
Okay,
attorney
okay.
and I
So
will
just
ask.
if you had enough time and everything, okay.
All right, we'd certainly be glad to sit and listen to it, but we have to go by the agenda that's set by the township, okay? I want to thank, Mr. Collins, thank you, thank Ms. Keller and Mr. Boyko for your representations here tonight and your testimony.
Thank you.
We'll look forward to seeing you again.
Sounds good.
All righty. Thank you. All right, that is all that's on the agenda for this evening. I see people in the courtroom. We do have an open public, we will have a general public comments if anybody wants to be heard. We'll entertain them at this time. If you do want to be heard, I'd appreciate if you would raise your hand because I'm going to move for an adjournment very shortly. No? Okay. I'm going to close the general public portion. Comments, anything, Mr. Clancy, that you want to tell the board?
No, we'll have the resolution from the earlier application ready for the next meeting, and that's it.
Okay, Ms. Swan or Mr. Dargy, anything? No. Good. And Ms. Porcelli, our next meeting is?
Our next meeting is, where are we now?
It is next week, April 18th.
April 18th,
Okay. We're back to Thursday. We're back to Thursday.
Thursday.
Probably full. All right, someone move for an adjournment?
Move it, Andrews.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? We stand adjourned.